Hello, today on Jwlar Plays we're checking out Star Wars Battlefront 2 Celebration Edition, which is actually free on Epic Game Store right now. Wished I'd known about that when I bought it on Steam a month ago. Before I cover the title subject, I like to go over the game I'm playing a little bit. If you want to skip straight to that subject, the timestamp will be on the screen now. As always, this game relates to the most recent retrospective, which is linked in the description. In that video, I slagged off this game quite a bit, and having only played the game for 12ish hours at that point, maybe I was a little too harsh. Now, with over 20 hours of game time, I certainly can see the merits in the new version of Battlefront 2, but I will stick by what I said when I say that this version doesn't capture the magic the original did. Now, it may just be nostalgia talking, but it is how I feel. Overall, I've been very impressed with the game. Of course, the graphics and sound design blow away any other Star Wars game released before, and you'd expect nothing less from the Frostbite engine and with DICE at the helm. Their games are always beautiful. Gameplay wise, it's certainly different from the original, but I can't really make a conclusion if I prefer it or not. It's definitely more modern feeling, but I think it's perhaps too different to really compare. First person mode, however, is far better, and is the best way to play for immersion in my opinion. Maybe not the best for multiplayer, but here in the single player, it makes the experience very epic feeling. Of course, the single player campaign saw some backlash from fans for being very fan servicey, but honestly, I quite like it. It's not the mature masterpiece that was Temuera Morrison's narrative in the 2005's release, but gameplay wise, it's undoubtedly superior, hence why I'm playing it here. To be honest, I actually really like the new Battlefront 2. I'm not much of a multiplayer guy, so I stick mostly to the campaign and instant action, and even then, I've logged 20 plus hours. I wish they could have included some kind of galactic conquest mode, and the space battles could have done with the choices that I mentioned in my retrospective, but overall, it's a very solid experience. Seeing that this game is literally free right now on the Epic Game Store, there isn't any reason why you shouldn't download it in my opinion. Right, onto the subject matter. Battlefront 3, a game that has eluded gamers once before. In fact, Star Wars games have a track record of not reaching frees. Looking at you, KOTOR and Force Unleashed. Following the success of Battlefront 2 way back in 2005, Pandemic were in a good position to start working on Battlefront 3, which they of course did, but unfortunately, not everything went to plan. Moving over to a new console seemed to cause problems for the development team as they started developing for hardware that was more powerful than what the 7th gen console generation eventually became. The initial idea was to link space and ground warfare seamlessly with 64-man battles, where you could choose to fight on the ground, take a starship and fly to space to fight there, or vice versa. They also wanted to include turrets on both ground and space that could affect both sides of the battle, i.e. a laser on the ground could be used to destroy and damage ships in space. But when they learned of the 360 and PS3's real hardware limitations, they were suddenly constrained. Combine that with poor management and the team being split between Battlefront 3 and a new Lord of the Rings game titled Lord of the Rings Conquest, and it was a recipe for disaster. It all came to a head when the Lord of the Rings game commercially failed after poor reviews, leading to Pandemic's bankruptcy and LucasArts subsequently axing Battlefront 3. Over the years, we've seen leaked gameplay and cutscenes of what could have been. Interestingly enough, the game doesn't look too far from being finished. It was seemingly in an alpha or beta stage, perhaps only a year or so from completion. With Pandemic finished, the rights for the Battlefront series were given to Rebellion, a small British studio who are now better known for the Sniper series and its Zombie Army spin-off games. With these rights, Rebellion released 2 PSP games, Star Wars Battlefront Renegade Squadron and Elite Squadron. Now it's Elite Squadron that stands out because it is actually a released version of Battlefront 3, using the same story and gameplay ideas dreamt up for the third title. It even includes the ground-to-air combat I mentioned earlier. Now gameplay wise, it suffered from being a PSP release, but it is super cool to actually see a complete version of the original Battlefront 3, even if it was super nerfed. So what about a new Battlefront 3 in the style of DICE's entries? Will we ever see EA taking the plunge to create a third installment? It's hard to say really. You would think it would be a no-brainer. Both of the new releases have been commercial successes, and after 3 years of patches, the community now seemingly love the new Battlefront 2. However, it is exactly the controversy surrounding that game that may give EA a reason to hesitate. Battlefront 2 in some ways can hold itself proud in that it has helped slowly kill the loot box gaming system that plagued so many otherwise great games in the mid 2010s. By 2017, people were fed up with the money-grabbing strategies publishers were starting to employ, and Battlefront 2's launch was one of the most egregious examples of this. Loot boxes were essentially the only form of progression offered in the game, making it almost entirely pay to win. After a comment from an EA PR team member became the most downvoted comment in Reddit history by a country mile, EA actually went back on this strategy, leading to the cosmetic-only economy the game now has. For the players, we finally had won. The publishers were taking note, and after 3 years, Battlefront 2 Celebration Edition is one of the definitive ways to fight within a war in the Star Wars universe. But how much did EA financially lose here? EA are a publisher. To them, games are born and killed by how much they can make. Did a cosmetic-only economy make EA enough to justify years of development time they would have to invest into a new game? Especially after DICE has shown that they may be losing their way with the recent controversies looming over the Battlefield series. Now I may be wrong here, and I hope I am, but it is entirely impossible that EA may simply abandon Battlefront, especially when they can make bank from games like FIFA. But on the other hand, they seem keen to continue with Star Wars, and after Fallen Order's release, I feel more and more confident that just maybe it could happen. What do you think? Comment below your opinion on whether we may ever see a Battlefront 3. And before I sign off, we should be optimistic in what a Battlefront 3 could mean. I saw this image on Reddit last week, and I think it shows the perfect combination for the ultimate Battlefront game. If this game ever released, I may actually have to admit that DICE have finally outdone the original game, especially if they can make space and land battles work seamlessly together as was originally planned by Pandemic. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this one as well as retrospectives, then like the video and subscribe. Next week I'll be covering Knights of the Old Republic. See you there.